All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's EEAC meeting on February 3rd. Would like to welcome everybody tonight, and we'll just take a quick rundown of the agenda here. We're going to do a roundtable discussion where people have a chance to share any updates they've heard from the school district or any experiences they've had within the school district. So we'll take some time to do that, as well as gather some questions for the future cabinet roundtable session. I want to make sure that we're being able to give information to cabinet early so that they have time to work on responding to our questions. And then we'll go into reviewing SIP and EASH plans, and we'll spend a large chunk of the night doing that. But before we get started with all that, I did want to quickly introduce Patty's replacement, Jadelyn Woodford. Welcome. Thank you. It'll be nice working with you going forward. So yeah, just want to make sure everybody's aware that Jaden will be supporting us instead of Patty in the future. All right, so yes, and it's nice to still see Patty. All right, so roundtable discussion. So yeah, we want to do something similar to what they do during board sessions, right, where the board and student reps have an opportunity to share about events and information within the school district. And bring up any questions or concerns. So we want to do something similar here and give everybody an opportunity to speak and say something. If you don't have something to talk about, that's fine too. But we do want to give people that opportunity. So I will hold off anything I want to say, and we can pass it around to Marissa first and go around the table that way if you'd like.
I'm Marisa Salinas. I didn't have anything in particular other than just a lot of gratitude for the principal at my daughter's school. I think that they have worked really hard with the school staff to try to alleviate a lot of the fear that the students have been trying to navigate through. So I'm just really appreciative of that.
I don't think I have anything to bring up as far as discussion goes around. I know in our department we're currently working on supporting what I think was supposed to be today, the SRO update. So just a calibration around that, just learning a lot about how we are supporting SROs and how SROs are showing up in our schools, and learning a lot from our admin around what that looks like. And so I'm just excited to make sure that we have all the proper information to be able to share with ESC.
Good evening, Diane Watson. And Jacob, I'm really sorry, but I missed what exactly we're supposed to be commenting on.
Sure. So, Zane, I don't know if you can do a better job of explaining it than me. It's intended to be similar to, and if you haven't seen a board work session or a board meeting either, that's fine. Just an opportunity for members to share any experiences within the district that you've had recently, or bring up anything that you would like people to be aware of, or any upcoming events, that type of stuff. Zane, I don't know if you want to provide any more detail on, yeah. And I guess what I would also say is I think the expectation also is, one of our responsibilities as a committee is to provide feedback to the board and the superintendent regarding what's going on in the school district, and if we have any concerns. So this would be an opportunity to do that, so that if you do have a concern or you observe something, this would be an opportunity to bring that up, such that Zinnia and Dr. McCall could bring that forth to the board and the superintendent.
Thank you so much for that clarification and for the opportunity as well. I would love for us, or I guess the two of you, to bring up sports and participation and the hidden fees. For example, my son plays basketball, and when we go to away games, sometimes you have to pay, sometimes you don't. And there is no pattern to when you pay and when you don't. And it ranges from $5 to $9. And so, you bring your family, and it could easily be $50 to see your child play at a public school. That just doesn't seem right. And then there's this culture around how kids dress on game day, which I think is extremely inequitable. they make the kids wear a tie, dress shirt, shoes, and all that. And we weren't told until October. So it wasn't like this was something I was planning on and saving for over the summer like I would for school clothes. And so I think that that's really problematic. And then last thing is the language that the coaches use about kids being ranked. And it's really a culture of punishment. So my kid was sick one day, it's excused absence. So of course he missed practice. 2 days later, he doesn't get to start. It's like, what are you teaching kids? Right? That's not a natural consequence. I'm sick from work. 2 days from there, I don't get some kind of punishment, right? I get sick days. So those are a few things that I think would be worthy bringing up to the superintendent.
Hi, Lisa Jones. I don't really have anything to add. Thank you.
Hi, Barb Doyle. I wanted to just report that today at our school we had more than 50% of our ELD students were absent today. I'm sad that I didn't know why until I checked in with our one of our secretaries, and she was able to explain to me that today was a day of protest of administration policies called A Day Without Immigrants. And I just feel like the next several months are going to be very tricky for our students who are from an immigrant background. And I'm wondering what we can do to help make them feel secure and help families understand that being here in school is going to be a safe place for your students. So I know that other schools, I don't know the full population that was gone today, but we have over 100 ELD students at our school, and over 50 of them were gone today.
Something that I just wanted to highlight was I just appreciate, since I do have a younger sister who is at the district, and I get to like read the emails that get sent out to parents with my family, and I just appreciate the communication and commitment from TTSD to continue to update families as things progress, and just their willingness to stick with us, like the immigrant community especially.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. I know there were comments early on about the various forms of communication, and I think the newest one I was like, okay, Parent Square, cool, and but I mean, some of the communications that have been coming through Parent Square lately, talking about that, such as the response to like lack of funding and whatnot, and so I appreciate the district's response in handling that type of stuff. I think it's helpful to make sure that the community is informed with what's going on with the school district in that sense. Something else that I would like to highlight, I sat in during the board work session, I think it was last week, when they did the last round of SIP roundtables, and I had the opportunity to sit in on the TTVA roundtable, so the Tualatin Virtual Academy, or Tigard-Tualatin Virtual Academy, which was neat and new for me because, I mean, I didn't know a lot about the virtual academy, and so it was good to learn about it. And it was also just helpful hearing, again, due to the structure of it, as we go through and look at SIPs, when we look at the TTVA SIP, there is not a lot there for us in terms of each plan and whatnot, but again, that's because it's all virtual, and so it was all pretty, very informative. So I was glad to be able to sit and learn at that table. Something else that I wanted to bring up that was a proposal and an ask from Zinnia is to help facilitate, we mentioned that, the funding aspect and whatnot, and to help facilitate, saving of funding and whatnot, is to potentially do some of our meetings virtual going forward, like not all of them, but like, every once in a while doing a meeting virtually so that, we can save on costs, not doing stuff in person and providing food and childcare and whatnot. So I wanted to get the committee's thoughts on that, and like if you're good with that, and then Zenia and I and Henry can work on figuring out which ones we can do that with. So I don't know if people want to get thumbs up or just say yes or no, or any concerns. Everybody's doing thumbs up. All right, I think thumbs up sounds good. So we will definitely go ahead and do that. I think potentially next month, so March 3rd, I think that might be a good one to do that. Because I guess, yeah, I can skip to that real quick, just a highlight of the agendas for the rest of the year. Next month, I was able to get an agreement. I heard back from Margie Green at Foundation from Tigard-Tualatin Schools, and she is more than willing to give a presentation. So I think it would make sense to do, we could do that one virtually, and she could, do a presentation on the foundation and what they do, as well as I'm pretty sure we will then continue to do SIP and each plan reviews, which can easily be done virtually as well. So I think we'll probably move next month to virtual. Awesome. As far as the rest of the agendas go then, March 31st, I need to talk to Zinnia and I guess Octavia about it too. Again, the SROs weren't able to be here tonight due to some conflicts. We typically had them show up twice. Right now we do have them showing up on May 12th. That would be their more the end of the year report. And I guess the question is, would they be able to do March 31st? Yes or no? And like, also, would that be worth doing March 31st and then May 12th, like a month and a half later too? So I'd say like we can talk about it more, not making a decision, but just like the March 31st meeting, we technically might have something open to do something a little bit more than just SIP each plan reviews or bias incident and hate speech data review. I'd like to change it up a little bit so we're not always reviewing data all the time. So, but again, we can talk about that more. And then April 28th will be the cabinet roundtable. So that's where we will have members from cabinet show up to present to us progress that they've made towards their strategic goals and equity audit goals. And that will be one of the next things that we will go into here in this work session is gathering questions to send cabinet so that they can prepare for that meeting in advance. I guess my last quick update on subcommittees. Again, unfortunately, Nina couldn't be here because she's not feeling very well, and Brad's not here. I do plan on having the first annual report subcommittee. I want to do it within the next month, just a quick check-in and whatnot, probably just a half-hour check-in. It will be virtual, but I just want to try and find time for people. I want to be conscious of people's times. I do have Nina, Lisa, Marissa, and Barb, you said you were maybe. Are you still interested in doing it? Okay, so I'll shoot all of you an email just to see what time in the evenings, what days of the week work best. And again, just try and do half an hour to check in and make plans for what we're going to do with the report. Sound good? Cool. All right, and then I guess I forgot the very last meeting of the year. The very last meeting of the year, June 16th. It is after school is out. As long as we don't have snow days, which hopefully we don't. And the purpose of that meeting, similar to last year, will be to review the annual report and provide feedback and whatnot, because it will be delivered to the board that following Monday, so 7 days after that. What is that, June 3rd, or June 23rd or 24th? All right, so with that, we're going to go into gathering those questions that we're going to send to cabinet. And again, in my notes, I have the areas that we provided recommendations and observations on in the annual report last year. So those are things that we will be sending to cabinet to hopefully speak to. So I'll go through those real quick, as well as I captured a couple, I think it was like 3 items that I captured from our previous discussions, right, where we did the roundtable, what do you want to see, do, and learn? So I have some items from those discussions as well that we're going to send. But this will be another opportunity for everybody to ask, okay, well, what is it that you would like to hear, so that we can submit those questions and information. All right, so surrounding academics, we were wanting to see more information on diving deeper into the intersectionality between low-income and economically disadvantaged students and students in historically underserved demographic groups, like with the purpose of like, if you're able to help one area, you're probably going to be helping both, right? And seeing what that intersectionality looks like. As well as we were looking for more details on root cause analysis and their responses. I think with the academics presentation last year, they were a little bit light on details and root cause analysis. When it came to diversification of workforce, we wanted to ensure that they had timelines in all of their goals. I think there was one goal that was missing a timeline. And while everything was looking pretty good, we would like them to leverage areas of strength. So like if things are working really well, like, really figure out why are things working well, it's, to try and help build that up continuously, help keep that momentum going and not lose that momentum. Yes, go ahead, Zinnia. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead, Barb.
I apologize if you already shared this, but is this a document that we can look at while you're talking about it?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Great question, Barb. Let me direct you to it. All right. Let's go to the shared drive. So if everybody goes to the shared drive and then you go to EEAC, I believe annual report subcommittee, and then final draft and artifacts. And right there, EEAC annual report. The only small challenge, like when opening up PDFs in this viewer, it brings it up in the window and then it's hard to navigate back and forth, but that is the PDF. And so when you go, so the section that we are looking at right now, if you go to the table of contents and click on Cabinet Roundtable, is that going to work? Okay, that's not working for me when I click on it. Okay, if you find Cabinet Roundtable in the document, scroll, there it is. Okay, so in this Cabinet Roundtable document, we just did academics, and after the box, there's a recommended areas of focus for academics. So I was trying to summarize that portion right there.
Jacob, is it okay
Yes.
if
Yeah, go ahead.
what I'm doing right now is I'm starting a notes page for today, and I'm gonna just link that to that notes page right now so everybody can just have access to it briefly. Is that okay? So
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me work on that right now so that you all can have that readily available. I know it's kind of hard navigating and trying to find that, so I'll work on that while you keep going.
Yeah, especially again because the opening up PDFs here is a little bit more cumbersome. I prefer to open up the Google Doc versions usually. Were you able to find it? If not, that's fine. I can help out.
Are we looking at two documents?
No, it's just one document right now.
Just the annual report from last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for now I'm just trying to show you where those recommendations are, right? Because that will be something that we will be sending cabinet as far as like, we would like to hear updates on this, right? Because we asked them in the annual report last year, these are areas that we would like you to focus on, so we would like to hear what progress they've made on that. Correct. And then from there, go into the final, yes. Yeah. And within that, the document is it's down towards the bottom. It says EEAC Annual Report 2023-2024.
We're looking at page 17, by the way, at the bottom. That's where we are right now.
Yep. Thank you. Page 17. Did you find it? Oh, page 17 right now. Yep. No worries. It is a large document. Yep. So right now we are on page 17, and there's the recommended areas of focus for academics. So that was the part that I just went over about the diving deeper into the intersectionality between low and economically disadvantaged students and historically underserved demographic groups. And then the next comment about more detail and more root cause analysis, because some of the responses were light on details. So again, that'll be something that will be sent to cabinet as far as that we would like to hear progress on this type of stuff and what work they've done. And so then on to diversification of workforce, scrolling down and going to the top of page 19. So recommended areas of focus for diversification of workforce. One of their goals was missing a timeline, so just wanting to make sure that they have timelines for all of their goals and leveraging areas of strength. Lots of teachers feel like they're supported, and so trying to get more information on how that is. Well, I guess it goes in the next bullet is, when instead of doing a root cause analysis to figure out what's going wrong, do a root cause analysis to figure out like why are we so successful? Like why is this? What's the good stuff going on, and how do we make sure to keep that going so that we don't lose momentum. And then lastly, unpacking the upbeat employee engagement survey and the exit survey to identify indicators of opportunity to capitalize on. So those are the recommendations for diversification of workforce. And then we go to culture and climate, which that one, recommended areas, is at the bottom of page 20. And again, rather than reading all of those, I tried to simplify it in my notes. More consistency and discipline referral process across schools. Because I think that's something that you may have seen when we reviewed the bias incident and hate speech data last session. Is, you know, there are some inconsistencies between schools as far as like this school does nothing but minor and this one had nothing but major, and so like they're not reporting the same way. So wanting to see more consistency there. Wanting to see if there's been an increase in PACS utilization, as well as analyzing how white students are more likely to receive Tier 2 services, while students of color are more likely to receive referrals. There was also a comment about wanting to see more focus on secondary levels, which this is an interesting comment. It's like, it depends on what we're talking about. Like here, a lot of the discussions on this session was about elementary, but then when we talk about SROs, all the focus was on, you know, high school and a little bit about middle school, so some secondary, but hardly anything in elementary. So I think this is just a reminder that, you know, whenever we're reviewing and asking questions, that we do want as much as possible to have a complete picture of what's going on in the school district. Another one follow-up is wanting to know what the district is doing to address Hispanic students disproportionately being identified for SPED. Oh wait, sorry, I think that's going into the notes that I had from, that's right, my apologies, because it ended at the more focus on secondary services. So, okay, so what we just went through covered the annual report as far as what we are going to send to them. And I have a few more from our previous discussion, but go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, Tier 2 services would be what exactly?
Xenia, do you want to help out with that, or Dr. McCall or Octavia?
Tier 2 interventions.
Yeah, multi-tier systems of support.
For
MTSS or PBIS?
yeah, because right now we're talking about culture and climate. So do you want to share some examples? I'm happy to fill in too.
Well, some examples of what we have like introduced as far as like they've incorporated a new system that supports some kind of like relative to collecting data around students to be able to support them at the Tier 2 level. And we incorporated that with our counselors and supporting that in small groups. So this is the first year that our counselors are introducing small groups and supporting that work. And so now it's kind of developed out. And we're getting that data and that input and to see how we can grow that.
Yeah, so a couple of things around, so Tier 1, the way that it works is Tier 1 is every student gets like this support, right? So whether it's, you know, at the elementary, you heard a lot about PACS, good behavior, and then there's the, at the Tier 1 level, there's a lot of focus on belonging, what does that look like, our advisory spaces, and then Tier 2 is more around given the needs of the students, whether depending on the student's profile, whether if we're supporting like check-in, check-out, a way for students to have that connection. There is check and connect, and I think what Octavia is talking about too is as we start looking at some of the needs of students, there might be small group instruction. We've also had situations where at the middle school you'd have like things like lunch bunch and stuff like that when you have some students that might have, you know, some anxiety or some worries around that. Yeah, so then we would have things like that as a way to support. And then Tier 3 is more individualized and focused on some of those pieces. Tier 3 is at the tippy top of a triangle. So you're looking at like probably 3 to 5% is a healthy range, and then like 5 to 10% at the Tier 2 level and 80% at the Tier 1 level.
And tier two is still parent involvement, so you still have to contact parent to be able to support tier two aspects of things.
Yeah, and so to clarify then the observation, and I wasn't at this roundtable last year, if I remember correctly, I think I was sick for that one and I had to leave. The observation, I don't remember if it was an observation from one of us or if it was something that cabinet shared, but what they were calling out is that white students were more likely to receive those tier two supports if something happened versus if it was a student of color, it was instead straight referral to the office rather than giving those supports. All right, so yeah, so those were all the recommendations from the annual report that we will send them, that we would like to see any information as far as progress on those. Some of the ones from the previous discussions we had where we did that, what would you like to see do and learn this year is what is the district doing to address Hispanic students being disproportionately identified for SPED, because that was something that's been shown in the data as well. Wanting to know what's more about what's going on with after school programs. So I think like the example given, I apologize, I don't remember who gave it, was like having a first come first serve for after school is not an equitable solution and whatnot. And so I know it fits into kind of the pay to play aspect as well, right? I know pay to play is usually talked about in terms of sports, but I mean it also comes with, you know, the after school programs as well. So again, we want to send, you know, questions, want to hear what's going on with after school programs. And then what is the district doing to make LGBTQ plus students feel more safe and welcome in our schools? So I think that's an important one as well. So far, that's the list of questions and whatnot that we are going to send to cabinet and want to open it up now. What else would you like to send to the cabinet?
And then the culture and climate is like student services. And then so we can take time. If everybody, I think I sent you the notes. It should be in your email. It says notes 2/3/25 EEAC. And so what we can do right now is I'll put in the different categories and you can start populating questions. So we can give time to, like, you know, think, process, and write, and then we can, you know, come back around and just do a quick check-in. Does that work for folks? I feel like we've been going, so like it might be good to take some time to look at the document, and then like come up with any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I like that idea. Well, we'll spend let's spend about 10 minutes doing that. Okay. Yeah, and then we'll report out.
Wait one more minute. It looks like we've slowed down a little bit with the notes. So, Chair DeGraw, one of the things that I was thinking about was a lot of these areas of focus came from the equity audit in 2019. And so, similar to a check-in at the start of the session today, as you know, this is a different group makeup from a few years ago. Being able to also name some things that you are interested in and who, like, what you might want to address, like an example, like we were talking about, like well-rounded education includes, you know, extracurricular questions and things like that. That's something that you could also work on. Like we could say, let's invite some people that are decision makers around those things, and we could have like a roundtable conversation around things like that. So those are some examples of what the committee can do as part of the cabinet roundtable. Do we want to go around and just like just unpack some of the questions that are here?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I just put the questions that I came up with and put them in there, so we can go around the table for any questions that people have added. So, do you want to go around to the left to Marissa again?
I'll have to admit I was having a little trouble hearing, so I was focusing on the report and then looking at the questions here. But so I don't really have anything to add. I can see that Henry typed one that I was interested in at the last minute. So
I didn't even know we were looking at another document for questions, so there's that. But like this goes back to kind of what Zinnia was talking about around time and manage of like when the SWOT analysis was finished and done, and seeing that some of that data may be different now, or you know, not relatively connecting to like the current reality, may kind of skew kind of what we are focusing on. So I did see that, and yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at.
I'm very curious how the district is using the term diverse. Seems not the right term, in that it seems like it's a euphemism for folks of color. And then by setting folks of color as diverse, which is a synonym of different, then we are just othering that group. And so instead of saying things like TTSD will increase staff diversity from 23% to 38% overall, it should be very specific. What are we looking for? What does that mean? If we have 38% of the staff is diverse, what does that mean?
Or any insights from that exercise that you want to bring up?
Yeah, a couple of things. I wrote down is what is the current percentage of teachers who report they are able to successfully manage their stress? The report says it will increase to 75%. So I'm just curious what that, what it currently is at. And then another thing I just kind of piggybacked off of someone else is I was curious how it's determined which schools get after school programs versus others. I just know I noticed a difference from when my son was at Metzger and now we're at CFT. Like, I don't even know if CFT has after school programs, but I know Metzger did. And I know, like, for instance, the beginning of the school year, Metzger was like, because I was still on their mailer, and they were like, oh, we're going to have soccer after school, whereas CFT didn't have soccer, you know? So I'm just curious, like, who determines that? And yeah.
The one I added was about low attendance rates. It was mentioned in several of the things, but um, low attendance impacts everything. It impacts academics, it impacts a sense of belonging, it impacts every aspect of a student's life and the family's life. And when we have a situation like we do now in our country where it's possible that some families will not feel safe coming to school, uh, I would like to see if there's a plan for supporting those families who have barriers to attending school regularly.
Just kind of to piggyback off that, my question was similar about just given recent events. How can we reassure the students and families that they are safe in schools?
Thank you, everybody, for adding to that and for having your shout outs. I would say please feel free to add to this document if something pops into your head later. I mean, I do anticipate Xenia will be sharing this probably within the next week or two, but I mean, in the next few days, if you think of something else, please feel free to add to it.
Yeah, I will be sharing this with Cabinet tomorrow. And so you'll still have time to populate that. They're just asking to have, like from last year, if we could have some of the questions that you want like answered that would help them with their presentation or their the roundtables. I wonder if at this time, is there any other like information that you might want to have from cabinet? So the cabinet makes up of district leaders that oversee departments. So we have operations that and facilities that review that oversee safety, facilities, food nutrition services, and then we have teaching and learning that oversee curriculum, instruction. You have student family services that oversee mental health, PBIS, positive behavior systems, and then equity and inclusion. And then you have the IT department, HR, community relations. So if there's any other questions that you might have, this is a good time to bring that up so we can add that also and invite whoever you might want to come and answer some of those questions.
And because we do have a meeting tomorrow, I'll put time on our agenda to share. You think about 10 minutes? Okay.
It would be helpful to know how they arrive at their metrics or the goals. So, for example, one of the goals is the retention rate for teachers of 5+ years will increase from 55% to 80% over 5 years. And I have no way of how to judge whether that makes sense or not. It sounds preposterous, to be honest with you, but I'm assuming that these people are smart and they looked at something to figure that out. And so while I don't think they need to go through every single goal like that, if they could just take one example and say, when we do this, this is what we use in order to make these kinds of goals.
And was that one of the questions that was in the list, or do you want me to knock that out? Okay.
I put it in there, so if
Okay.
you didn't catch that, it's in there somewhere.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think I need a little help formatting my thought, or just someone to tell me if I'm off base here. But something that jumped out when I was looking at the annual report was the discussion about PACs, and I think it was kind of, I'm not entirely sure what I want to know, other than when we're talking about safety and in the schools, connecting resources of how to manage the stress or environment in the school, both for staff and students. So I'm not entirely sure how to put that in, but that's what comes to mind. So if someone can translate for me, I'm perfectly fine.
Can I ask some clarifying questions for that? So like what am I think what I'm hearing you say is are when you shared that you noticed that PAX is brought up, is that a way in which to support uh,
I think just thinking, connecting the concerns and questions kind of with like Henry's um, question about ensuring people stay safe in the school, and just thinking about the resources or practices that were in place, which I know PAX is different, but it kind of seems to pull out some of the resources or strengths, and just wondering if there's any plan to maybe that's what I'm asking, is to incorporate that into what we are doing right now to address the threats basically as they come. I hope that makes sense. Took a little while to get there.
right. Do you want to say something? I think I'm starting to have parts of it, but if you want to contribute to me getting more, that would be great.
I can't see your name tag from here, so I apologize. Marissa? Marissa, is it how are current programs helping to make kids feel safe in light of the administration, the current administration, something like that? Is that close?
Yeah, I think that was kind of Henry's question already, but I think it was just because the PACs and the report jumped out to me, and thinking about what that teaches and helps the children with. So it just kind of connected for me.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is I think it kind of goes back to our conversation around the different tiers of support. So like what type of resources are connected to tier one, everybody, right? And what are we doing connected to that? And resources. When I think about that, it's not just like money, but it's like time, attention, and people that are focusing their work on that at a tier two level. Like what type of programs, curriculum, and things like that. So I think about at the elementary level, is it caring communities, and then at the middle, it's character strong. Like those. No, that's not right.
Be good people.
Be good people. Okay, yeah. So I think those are so examples, like what type of curriculum, what type of resources are available for teacher staff, right, to be able to wrap around students when I think like you said, the external components, but then also what are we doing, for students that are in need when there's like high like trauma, right, for students. Is that kind of like what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm just having trouble putting the thought process together, but that definitely is what is on my mind. And I think I tend to, it's confusing because the terminology and the services available now is very different than what I was used to. So I kept thinking that tier services is more like um, emotional and behavioral intervention, and wasn't really connecting it that way, because it used to be more of a focus on just the system was different. So I kind of forget about that.
No, I think this is actually I want to take a moment to pause and say this is the type of discourse that I think we want to have. I think oftentimes we get kind of bogged down on like the jargon of what is happening in schools. So I would love to have just a moment, like when you say like I want to hear a little bit more. What would you want to hear and see, so that like families, and this is really the role of this committee, right? Is to be able to say, what as families do we really want to see? Because sometimes we get caught up in like these vocabularies, these jargon, but like, can we get to the point of what it is that we're doing to better support students and families, right? So I think we want to get to this point where like, let's just speak like about what it is that we really want to see. Yeah.
What I think what is working is kind of what I started off with, was that both with the school district and with the principal, there are these constant messages, just not in writing, but in communication with the students and the staff about what is important to, that their safety is important, that they are important, that they are protected. And that's kind of what I think I want to know from the board, is just that, is that they will embrace that they will continue that they will get that message out, and protect their students. I think that's really what it comes from.
I think what comes up for me when you talk about that, like you were talking about other forms of people that we think we need to have conversation with. I think communication is probably a really like an important person to bring to the table, because she just brought up like maybe 4 different forms, like families, staff, students. Like, how are we communicating that out to all those people? And I believe that there were some people that came and asked, like, okay, what do the students know, and what are we telling the students? But I don't know if we've gotten to that point where we've had those conversations yet with students. And but they know. So then, like, where, what are we doing to help, mitigate some of the things that may come up in other spaces like ODRs and things like that. So I feel like that may be a place where we need to kind of highlight to what you're saying around utilizing the packs and the things that we have already in place to kind of get out that message to where it's actually fitting and supporting those students to understand what's happening.
So you mentioned all these different positions on the cabinet, and the last one you mentioned, I think, was community resource or community outreach.
Community relations,
Yeah,
and
is that-
communication.
I don't know, just when you were saying all those, that's kind of what rang a bell for me. And does that fall into everything we're talking about right now?
Yeah, that was what Octavia was making the connections with. Like, as we talk about what are we curious about around what's happening in our district, if that is something that you're curious about at this moment in time, then we can invite the community relations and communications department to host a roundtable, and our departments, that and ours, equity and inclusion, works really closely. So that would be something that we would be able to bring forward tomorrow to say, the EAC really wants to hear, from the communications department around how we are communicating that sense of care and like ongoing check-in and support for our students and our families during times like these.
I was thinking that it would be great if we could have a visual of belonging as MTSS, right? So you think of like that, the biggest part of the triangle is this is what everybody needs in order to feel like they belong, right? That's tier 1. And then what do some kids, based on their identity and the context of the school, context of society, what's going on historically, what do they need? And then tier 3 is, based on intersectionality of like 1 and 2, basically. What do these kids need? And it just would be nice to have that framed out. And what does that mean then in TTSD? If you need tier 2 belonging support, what services do we have? And I think that would go along a little bit with what Marissa was talking about too, because we already have a whole bunch of things, it sounds like, that could work. But then they'll also reveal the gaps. And Zinnia, you're so awesome at that kind of stuff. I think you could do it.
What makes you think it's not already
I want that on the
there?
record.
Thank you.
I love that idea. And that just, because that was the thought I had too, was because I know I've asked multiple times at these meetings, well, what is that tier? What's that tier? Like, so whoever handles that department also, I'd love to have a presentation. And maybe that's just creating some document or having them come and present it, but I love that idea.
I'm going to do a plug. One of the things that we do annually is our budget committee meetings, and that's when we have presentations about those systems. And they're already, so we already do have that, it's focused on it. When we talk about a student, what are all the things that in the system that wrap around that student, and that's like the different tiers for academics, the different tiers for social emotional behavior, and then for equity and inclusion, it's the hierarchy of needs, and then what are all the things that we have to support those. So we can definitely bring that forward and add that to, because we already have those, so we can just share that with y'all.
Just what you shared, Diane, is like, how do we do more of that? Because to Dr. Owen's point, we do have that, and when we do those public meetings, we bring that out, but it makes me wonder, how else can we share that information, though, for those who are not able to attend, whether it's on our website, but whether it's in our schools that were posted. So how much more do we need to do so that everyone understands what that looks like and sounds like in our schools?
And then that makes me think that maybe that's a missing link to why some of these students aren't receiving some of these services. I don't know, like, I keep thinking, like, why are children that aren't white why is it not getting, why aren't they not getting recognized that they need these services? And I don't know if it's a communication thing, or parents don't know what these services are, or I don't know. I'm just curious, like, is it TWE program students? You know, I don't know what that is or really where I'm going with this, but maybe that's the missing link somehow.
Lisa, are you talking about that one statement about how white students tend to get tier 2? Oh, that sounds like just old-fashioned racism to me.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be that way. I was looking at this and it did say that. It said, where is it? Yeah, while it's observed that white students are more likely to receive tier 2 services than other students. That's what I was talking about. So I apologize if it was coming across that way. Okay.
I'm saying, I think the answer is racism.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
That
Right.
we tend to give certain groups a break.
Yeah, I
like,
agree
oh,
with
you don't
there.
get that. It's okay. You're developmentally right where you're supposed to be. And then other kids, it's like, you're
Right.
bad. And so they get the punishment.
Yes, I agree with you.
Zinnia, do we have to wait until the budget meeting, or are you allowed to send that to us since it's already been created?
Yeah, I can put it in the notes page today.
Thanks.
I'll drop that in there right now.
Something I also want to just add about that just now is just I'm wondering about like what circumstances are in place for someone to get like assigned that, like, oh, this student needs tier 2, and just like, is that, I guess it would really depend on like the level. Like, is it something where like if a student asks for support, they get the support? I'm thinking about the students who, if that was the case, who aren't able to voice their concerns and they're stressed and they're just keeping it to themselves and they're in desperate need of that support. So like, how do we ensure that they are getting their support that they need?
I'd like to just bring up the idea that there are some things that are happening at some schools and not at others. And I don't have anything off the top of my head right now, but it might be something that somebody at one school decided we're going to do this to help our kids in this way. Um, I'm thinking, okay, the one that pops in my head is attendance for students, especially of our Pacific Islander students. Like there's one school, the ELD teacher at that school told me that they will go and pick up those kids. I don't know how that works or if that's even okay to do, but it was just at that school they decided that was one thing that they were going to do. But are there programs that are happening or things that are available at some schools, but not at all schools? And is that part of the thing that you're going to share with us? Or I'm not even sure where I want to go with that, but
Yeah, so
are those programs spread across the district?
so one of the things that we have done in our district, aligned to policy ACC, educational equity and racial justice, is that we have teams of people that take a look at some of the gaps within our system, and they work within their school team to say what is a problem that we're trying to solve to mitigate the system's impact on students. So when you're talking about they're looking at their current data to say who in our system are we not serving very well yet, and what are the things that we can do to be able to address that. So then they come together, they take a look at the data, and see where there are systems gap, and then they go and check in with those that are impacted, like what is the root cause of that. And so I think like an example can be like we were finding out that our students who were eligible for McKinney-Vento services, students navigating houselessness, homelessness, that their attendance was majorly impacted. And so we were wondering about why that was. And obviously the demographic groups have like high mobility due to that. But the other part is that sometimes it takes 3 to 5 days to get transportation set for the student. So what we did as an initiative to say, okay, let's pilot this change idea is what would that look like if we partnered with transportation and we offered stopgap transportation. So then folks within our department would go and like guarantee like 5 days of like to mitigate that gap. So then we would have so then like when we tested that out, we were able to like save like over I think 300 days missed, right? Across, because it was not just the student, because then you had a family that had multiple students, right, in the system. So then we were able to do that. So that's an example of how we are looking at our data and then being able to kind of find a potential solution and then scale that up. So then that allowed us to say, well, that's a promising practice of how do we expand that and be able to review that study. And the thing about things like that is it makes like equity work really tangible. It's not like this, theory here. It's like it's literally eliminating barriers to be able to have students be where they need to be. And then as you do that study, you find out there are other parts in our system that has like inefficiencies or like disconnections, which then you can, as an outcome of that study, you basically can find ways to help mitigate that. So we worked with transportation to kind of build out a model around how do we mitigate that long term in a sustainable way. So those are some examples of how that works. And I think each school has a team of people that basically can bring up some of those initiatives. So those are some examples. And then we then scale up. So one thing that we hadn't done was that we hadn't done a lot of work around supporting the sense of belonging, regardless of like your identity. And so the last few years, we really focused on like our multicultural nights, our unity events, and things like that. And so that's how a lot of that now is like part of our everyday culture because of those initiatives that we scaled up. So those are some examples around how we've been changing our system.
That makes me think about what I was just talking with Barb about a little bit ago. Like, for instance, the TWE program. Like, I have a kid that I think would do really well in TWE, but it's my understanding that because we're not zoned in that area where she can get transportation, I would have to drive her there every day and pick her up every day. So that doesn't feel very equitable and inclusive to me. So, I don't know like how to like tackle that sort of thing, like as a district, or if it's even able to be offered. Like you bring up transportation. I get it. Kenny Vento is like a separate thing, but at the same time, like how could more people benefit from something like the TWE program that parents aren't able to drive them there and pick them up every day?
So that's something that we can add to the academics if that's like a topic that you want to bring up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was a rich discussion. Nice work, team.
Yes, very rich discussion. And this practices my ability to pivot and be patient and whatnot, which are things that I'm always working on. So, because I want to be mindful of people's time, and we won't have time to do like the full review of SIP and each plan, because I do want to. Some of these SIPs and each plans are pretty long documents, like anywhere between 20 and 30 pages, and so I want to make sure we give people some time to review them. With that being said, though, I mean, I can give a preview as far as what we will be doing in future meetings, and we'll do it similar to last year, where I mean, there's 18 schools, right? So we're just gonna like chunk it up, and we're gonna try and devote some time next meeting after that, to get through them, and yeah, that'll be the path forward. So I guess what I can try and do here, again, working on pivoting, is, let's see, what I want to do first. I guess I will share I updated the rubric. So there was a form that we used to provide our feedback last year, and I made some modifications to it. So if people want to go to their shared drive and go to the top, and then go into the SIP/each plan documents, and then go into 2024-25, and then one more time into the each plan review documents. And that is the each rubric that we will be using going forward. So feel free to open that. So again, I don't have time to go through the examples that I was going to share, but I went through and looked through some of the SIPs and each plans, and there was some, discrepancies between some schools having a very built-out each plan with lots of information, and other schools having very minimal information. And so, in discussion with Zinnia, what we're going to try and do in order to make sure we cover as much ground as possible is that we're also going to give like kind of a training tool on like, well, what is a continuous improvement plan, right? Just to make sure that people are on the same page as far as like what is included in a continuous improvement plan. So again, we'll do that when we do this exercise next time, and Dr. McCall and Zinnia will help go over again what is a continuous improvement plan, and same thing with the each plan. And the goal will be this first section is, within the continuous improvement plan, there are many initiatives or things that the schools call out that they're doing that could fall into some of the categories that would go with each, like education surrounding bias incidents or hate speech, or building that up within their communities. Any examples of accountability, or any solutions or healing. We'll cover that as well. So some of that stuff, it might be a little bit harder to find. I tested it out. You might need to read between the lines a little bit, but you can see some of that stuff there, and then also make notes as far as like, it looks like this is kind of addressing the education aspect, but I want to know more and have more clarification, right? So historically, we've really only looked at the EASH plans, and we've kind of bypassed the SIPs because of that, because most of the information we needed was in the EASH plan. So this time around, we are going to look through the continuous improvement plans, and so that will make this process go a little bit longer. But we are going to look at the EASH plans as well. When we get to the exercise, I will recommend, even though it's not in order on this document, I would recommend let's review the EASH plans first. So when everybody gets assigned a SIP, you'll go to the EASH plan first, which is going to be at the bottom of the documents, and do that section first. Then go back up and start going through the SIP. If people want to, just to take a quick look, you don't have to do the exercise, but if you go back to that shared folder and go back up one, I have saved all but one of the SIPs. So, within that 2024-25 school year, all the SIPs are included in there. So you could feel free and open up one and take a look at it if you want to prepare yourself a little bit. I will make note, Tualatin Elementaries is still missing because the link on the website sends you to Tualatin High Schools. So that needs to be fixed because, Tualatin Elementary SIP is not out there.
Did you check recently?
I checked last Thursday before I check in. I haven't checked since then.
Okay. I think
So-
I shared it with the folks at Teaching and Learning, so.
I'll check again, and once it's up there, I'll put it in here as well. But if people, and again, we're not going to go through it now because I want to be mindful of time, but if you wanted to compare the documents that we will look at to compare, Bridgeport Elementary to me is an example of a really, really good EASH plan. Like, it's really built out. There's a lot of detail there and whatnot. And then you can take a look at either one of the high schools, either Tigard High School or Tualatin High School. Both of those are pretty minimal as far as the specific EASH plan goes. So again, when reviewing, something like Tualatin High School or Tigard or some of the other schools, again, you're going to have to review and go through the SIP in order to try and pull out as much, actions that they're doing that fall under the EASH categories.
Can I just clarify?
Yes.
Is the EASH plan a separate document from the SIP plan? Or is it contained within the SIP plan?
It's contained within the SIP. So it is within the SIP. It's just at the end. So like, again, a SIP main total will be like 24 pages, and the EASH plan will be like the last 3 or 4 pages. Yeah. So it might take you some scrolling to get down to it. And like, here, just let me open up one real quick. I'll open up Bridgeport because it's there in front of me. And it's about 30 pages long. You keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. The EASH plan will start on page 25. It says EASH plan implementation accountability. Okay, and so again, Bridgeport's an example of one that's really well built out and has links and information and all that stuff.
So just for clarification, you take our review back to the schools, right? The review goes back to the schools.
Yeah, so last year, the EEAC filled out feedback forms, and so at the summer, all administrators meet with me, and we go through kind of the department goals, and then I give them the feedback that you all gave, and they update their continuous improvement plans using that information. So that's how it's that cycle. That was the first year that we did that. So this is the second year. So like, it'll be helpful for them to see, oh, that's the process of feedback loops.
Yep. So again, that'll be a process that we will start during our next meeting, and so that one will be the March 3rd, which we're going to be doing it virtually. So, yeah, I mean, at least when I'm working at home, doing this, I won't be on this laptop. I'll be on my PC, which is a little bit more friendly with the mouse and whatnot. So if that's the case for others, hopefully it will be a little bit easier. But yeah, I'll do my best to walk people through where to find stuff when we have our next meeting, and we'll go through this exercise.
And then I wanted to give an update that in the notes I just pulled the 4 slides that kind of tells about the MTSS process. So it's on the top of the note, says multi-tiered systems of support. We have, like, I think there's also student services website that also has that in like clear other levels too. I can link that here as well. But that's a brief snapshot of the different systems that support students.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that, Zinnia. All right. And with that, I did want to highlight an upcoming opportunity to listen and participate. So let's see. I mean, next Monday, which would be the 10th, I am going to give an update to the board on the work that we're doing. So I will be doing a presentation to the board next Monday during the board meeting. So feel free to show up or be present if you want to for that, or listen to it. The day after, on February 11th, Zinnia, if you can help me provide more detail on this, is, and Zinnia mentioned it before, that roundtable, the cabinet roundtable thing where we're sending questions, that originally started from the first equity audit that the district created, and we reviewed as a committee 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that, and you know, met with them and asked for feedback. And so it sounds like now the district is going through the process to do another equity audit, and is that the discussion for next Tuesday?
Yeah, so just a reminder, equity audits could be many different things connected. This year specifically, we're going through a comprehensive systems health check related to serving multilingual learners of English. And so the first phase, there had been a review of different components towards like linguistic equity. And I can actually put that phase 1 findings here for the team. This next phase is, so that was like perceptions of leaders around like how we're serving multilingual learners of English. And then from there, there were some areas that we wanted to focus on around, as a system, we needed to focus on program models of serving our MLEs, or multilingual learners of English. And then we also have a focus on instructional expertise, meaning does everybody know how to serve our students, not just our language specialists. And so this next phase is connecting, like a verification process where we're inviting staff that have direct connections with our multilingual learners of English, but also staff that might not have the direct but still serve and might not have the level of expertise, just so that we can hear how, as a system, we're serving our students. And so all schools are going to be bringing a small group of constituent groups together to have a conversation around like what are the barriers, bridges towards serving our MLEs. And so that's what we're doing on Tuesday. And so there's a cross section of staff across each school that's going to come together to talk through some of those things around specifically serving our recent arrivals, newcomers, and then also at the secondary level, students who are long-term English learners, and like what is impacting their ability to exit the program. So that's an area of inequity that some folks have brought up that we want to discuss, because the longer students are in the program, the less opportunity they have for electives and extracurricular activities. So we want to be able to hear and understand that from the lens of our staff. The next phase is students and families.
And EEAC members are invited to that, and it will be here?
No,
Or-
it's virtual.
Oh, it's virtual?
Mhm.
Okay. So we will then need links to that, I guess. I have not seen an invite link to it, or is it on the committee, or is it on the school district website?
I think if you want to join, I would say email me, and
Okay.
then I can add you to the link.
Okay. And what time is it?
It's 4 to 6.
4 to 6. Okay.
Mhm.
So 4 to 6 next Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 11th,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Next
it's
Tuesday.
it's a virtual meeting.
Yeah, it's a virtual meeting. So next Tuesday, February 11th, from 4 to 6. And if you're interested and want to attend, please respond to Zinni, and she can get you a link to join that. Cool. All right. Well, yes. So our next meeting will be March 3rd. And again, we all agreed it will be virtual. So we will be meeting virtually next month. And I hope everybody has a great and wonderful February.